the Oz, great and terrible.
I'm not terrible. You're terrible.
No, terrible like in biblical sense.
Oh, I see. So I think we're live. Once again, I didn't do pre-roll because I was waiting for everything. Yep, we're on. I can see it.
We're on. That's true.
And we're gonna go right into it because we have someone who I usually watch on YouTube, but now he's watching me, and that's Jeff McAleer. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh, I'm leaving. You can't even get my name right.
Did I screw it up?
Oh my, it's McAleer.
McAleer. I am so sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
It's got two E's. It's all right. He can call you McOiler.
Well, here's the thing.
He always calls things oily.
I know I do.
I've had people call me McAleer, and it's like, there is no G there. But you were close enough.
I'm sorry. I should have said before, but if it makes you feel better, 95% of people can't pronounce my first name.
Really?
Yeah.
Steven?
I've seen so many Stevens with PHs.
No,
Do they call you Stefan?
Everyone calls me Stefan. Everyone. And I mean.
But that would be Stefan.
You don't have to tell me.
Wait, that's Stefan.
You don't have to tell me. I'm the one who gets called it. And I'm like, everyone says Glicker. No one has a problem with that. But everyone's like, Stefan. I'm like, oh. Are you kidding me?
Your name's obviously Steven Glicker.
It's so annoying. And people can't pronounce Seifter. They pronounce it's actually including Jeff mispronounced it in your little preview. So we're even.
I did. But you see, I don't get to watch videos with Mark constantly where his name is mentioned twice in each show.
So by the way, Jeff is
kidding.
I know. Jeff is out of sync a little because his setup is so awesome that it couldn't handle my crappy Zoom. So
it's actually because I am coming to you from about 10 minutes in the future.
Oh, there we go.
And I just can't get that audio to sync correctly. So
yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, we'll be all right. But I wanted everyone to meet Jeff, especially new people who have never met Jeff or seen his show, because he's at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, and he has a show that's almost nightly. It's
only 3 nights a week. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But
you do a lot of extra shows and stuff, it seems like.
I do. I have an entire website. So it's thegaminggang.com.
Right.
We're actually coming up on our anniversary. We launched on September 1st, 2010. Mm-hmm. So we've been around for a while. So we're not like new.
Right.
And,
I know.
Yeah, I think we got like 1,800 videos on YouTube.
Yeah, you have a lot.
So yeah, we got
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But
you can say that means you're very experienced if you have 1,800 videos.
I think so.
I don't know. If you watch any of them, you'll be like, oh, is this the first video this guy's ever done? Oh my gosh.
It's very relaxing. I like watching your show. It's like the NPR of gaming. Okay, how about instead of NPR?
It's more exclusive than NPR.
No, it's more like
I've been on NPR, but I've never been on the Gaming Gang.
That's true. You have been on NPR. That's right. Forgot about that.
Give Terry Gross my best. I love Terry in the Fresh Air. A big fan. I'm plugging NPR. Look at this. I mean,
there you go.
It's already off the rails.
We always go off the rails in the beginning, but I wanted people to know who you were because it's like I do like your show. I was very excited. We bumped into each other at Gen Con.
Yes,
and then I was like, oh man, I should have set up an interview. I seem to have missed like half of the people I wanted to meet at Gen Con, so that's what always happens.
Gen Con was kind of weird.
It was weird this year
in some ways.
Yeah.
Because we cover board games and role-playing games over at the Gaming Gang, but I'm personally trying to segue more into RPGs. Just because they're so different. The publishers and that for board games are there's so many people out there reviewing them.
Right.
And they come, to the convention and their hand is out and they're like, gimme.
Right.
And I've never been one of these guys who approaches publishers and says, hey, can I get that? I prefer them to reach out to me. So when I stroll up, they're like, who the hell's this guy? It's like, well, I'm the guy who's been doing this, I'm going on 13 years.
Right. Yeah.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
And RPG companies are not like that. They're like, oh my God, Jeff. And they're waving at me from across the hall.
I think what made it hard this year because everyone had masks on, and it's like I couldn't see anyone. It was I'd be like, "Who's that?" Only reason I even recognized you is because I think you had your hat on and you were standing at the Paizo booth with with press stuff, and I looked at your badge. Even I had to double check because I don't know your height.
we had the camera on a monopod and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of obvious that I had something to do with game media.
Yeah. But it was your show. I do like how you flip through the books, you do your reviews, you give the news. It's a really good show. Everyone should check it out.
Well, thank you. Some people despise it. I got an email earlier today from somebody who hates it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's the internet.
They go out of their way.
Yeah, but I thought they usually write those in the comments section. They actually sent you an email.
Oh yeah, like, every once in a while.
Jeff, I hate
Dear
your show.
Jeff, let me take the time to tell you how much I hate you. It's
funny because then I'll go and I'll look
so ridiculous
for like their YouTube ID and that, and then it's like, oh, they've got a channel, absolutely no content, and they've got one subscriber, which is them.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Please tell me how to do this.
Yeah.
But it's the interwebs. There's hate. There's a lot of hate out there.
So we do our show. I don't mind. We do show a little differently than yours. We talk about topic and then we get questions. We'll talk. If people have questions, feel free to ask them. If people do super chats, we take them right away. If people want to join,
is this guy you're talking to?
That could be one of the questions.
That's going to be one of them.
That was the first 10 minutes.
Why are you talking to this guy?
That was the first 10 minutes because you have 8,000 reviews online. That's why. And as you said, you cover role-playing games, which, as you said, there's so many people out there who cover board games. And not that you just cover role-playing games, you cover like every type of role-playing game, which I like.
Yeah, I have no dog in the fight is what I like to say.
Right. So I even watch yours just to learn. Like the other day, you're talking about, I know about Pendragon, but I haven't seen it or known anything about it in years. And I was like, there's a new version out, So no, it's great. I do enjoy that. But it was funny. So yes, I always try to come up with a topic that might generate interest or something you can contribute to. And the thing that I found interesting was why I made it, what makes a great or terrible tabletop role-playing game, is that the other day...
My answer is, I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. Topic done. We'll figure it out. But no, you said that you had no preference between 5e or Pathfinder in one of your shows last week, and I was like, wow! I don't think those words have ever been uttered, ever.
I'm sure they've been uttered a lot. I disagree with Stephen. I think they have been. Like, especially, you see that would see that especially in a sentence like that starts like this. It would be from someone who was like, I don't think there's any difference between, and not saying that this is where Jeff is at, but you see it from everyone who's in this crowd. I don't think there's any difference between Pathfinder 2nd Edition and 5e, and I have no preference between them because the real where it's at is narrative gaming, and both of those two games are just not even in the wheelhouse of RPGs that I'm looking at, which is all the indie narrative RPGs. Like, someone who's in that crowd would definitely say that. Like
Derek from Knights of Last Call, he's all into the indie RPG scene quite a bit.
You don't even have to go indie though. I mean, take a look at Call of Cthulhu is certainly not indie. Traveler certainly not indie.
True.
Vastly different than 5e and Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The way I kind of look at it is when I talk about I really don't have any preference, it's because I find that both publishers kind of do things relatively similar. They both have kind of the same problems with their adventures. They have kind of a similar mindset as far as how they approach their products. Now, I have no issue with anybody at Wizards of the Coast. Certainly have no issue with anybody at Paizo Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of things they do very well. As far as their adventures, they're not always designed the way that I would prefer. That's kind of how that's why I kind of say I don't really have a preference because I like them equally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love either one.
Well, which one would you say that you do love, if there was one?
What role-playing game do I love?
Yeah, role-playing.
Call Cthulhu.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's old school.
I've been running that since it came out. So,
I used to play it too when it first came out, and when I was like a kid, and man, it was so. I remember playing with my friends, and we were like, so we all die. Is that it? Like, we all go insane in horrible ways and die. What a weird game. Yeah, of course, back then we were playing first edition D&D, which was like the deadliest thing on planet Earth. So Call of Cthulhu almost seemed tame in comparison in retrospect.
It's gotten a reputation over the years that your investigators are all going to die. And that's not necessarily the case. If you approach everything like, well, let's kill it. It's Monty Hall time. Let's go. Well, then, no.
I think it's totally not fair. It's totally not fair to say that all your investigators are going to die. I haven't played a lot, but in all the times I've played, there were at least one or two people who went insane and were so sent out of the mission that they weren't there to die with everyone else.
Well, there you go.
Sure, right.
They survived
but at what cost?
In a hospital somewhere, just like constantly like their eyes wide and like constantly muttering about the things that they saw.
Yeah, I should play Call of Cthulhu again because it was awesome. I do remember I loved rolling and getting slowly more insane, and it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot of fun. And I do find it fascinating that Japan just loves Call of Cthulhu. Like, what is going on there?
It's because of the lightning in a bottle thing. Like with Critical Role in the US, there was one very popular stream.
Oh, really?
And then yes, there was a hugely popular Call of Cthulhu stream, and it went from like basically barely being played in Japan to being major in Japan.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so big.
You know what? Other role-playing game is super popular in Japan.
What?
Tunnels and Trolls.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Wow, that I did not know.
Tunnels and Trolls. It is a huge seller.
Wow.
In Japan. Yep.
I was at Japan. Wow, that was 3 years. 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, and I did go to game stores, and I took pictures. This is the weird. I remember I was taking pictures, and I sent this to my friend. And it was a really tiny, it was actually Perham, Mark, and it was a really tiny game store. And there was 3 guys behind the counter. And I was like, there's 3 people working at a game store in Japan. That never happens. Like how do they make enough money to have 3 full-time people working here? But it was interesting. It wasn't that much different than an American game store. I thought it'd be like significantly different, but it was pretty much the same. Just a lot in Japanese. But it was
sure.
It was fascinating. Yeah. I would have liked to have played something there, but it was the language barrier was definitely too strong. But it was I would like to. I wonder what's popular. I know like Brazil, Pathfinder's like crazy popular in Brazil, like really popular. So,
gaming in general is big in Brazil. Like there's a gaming convention in Brazil that's huge.
So but you had something yesterday you mentioned is that a good GM.
Oh no, they're gonna call me out.
I am. Yeah, it's a problem. When I watched it, I'm like, I'm gonna watch the show so I can call back on him. A good GM, but you're right though. A good GM can make any game good, and a bad GM can make any game bad. And as someone who is a forever GM, and if I play with you, and you are not just me, but my group, who we've been playing together for 43 years or something.
Sure.
If you're not a good GM, we will torture you. Like you do not want us as players because we will just run you off the stage. Like it's just not fun for anyone. Well, it might be fun for us, but you know, like if you don't know the rules and stuff like that.
Throwing down the gauntlet here.
Yeah.
Well, I had Mark as a GM. Mark, that was a fun, but you see me as a player. You saw me as a player. Very disruptive.
Steven was intentionally trying to be as disruptive as possible. While still not being too disruptive because the other players were being cooperative.
Chaotic.
He wanted. No, because in some cases you were being more lawful and less chaotic. Even though because the other players were all together in one direction, and that's because he wanted to create a good drama and a good stream by playing the heel.
Because because everyone was good, and you can't, because it was first stream. And yes, you're actually 100% right, Mark, because if you have 3 goody good 2 shoes, you can't have 4. It's boring. You need conflict. So I had to provide the conflict, and I did. And it actually turned out to be very fun. That that game.
They were going to go on a drinking party run, and you're like, I don't want to go. They're like, I would say not going on a drinking party run is not more chaotic, but it is anti what everyone else wanted to do, which then created negotiations. It created all the kind of things that you kind of want to see in a narrative compared to just everybody agreeing with each other. So that's why you did it.
Yeah, then I tried to steal stuff, and then I got caught, and I almost got bounced out of the bar. I mean, that makes a fun game as opposed to
Steven is that guy.
I am that guy. I'm totally that guy. I totally am that guy. He's
definitely that guy.
I'm totally that guy. But because if you've been playing for so long, you got to stretch things out. You got to push the boundaries, man. You got to see what you can do. You got
to shake things up.
Right.
So I'm going to say that I both strongly agree with Jeff's thesis, but also I'm going to put a twist on it and say that I don't completely agree that that is that simple. If the thesis is, I think, there's not such a thing necessarily as a great or terrible tabletop role-playing game, but there are great and terrible GMs or DMs, and they kind of make the game. Is that correctly the thesis?
So I had mentioned this on last night's live stream, that the topic of today's show would be what makes for a great or terrible tabletop role-playing game.
Right.
I said, I don't know how comfortable I feel addressing that, because even though I've been playing for 40 plus years, I'm not, I haven't played everything. I don't know everything. I would think that's a little too presumptuous of me, but there are excellent role-playing games, and there are completely awful garbage role-playing games that have been out there. But to me, I find that a very good game master can take a relatively crappy role-playing game and make it a wonderful experience at the table, whereas a bad GM can take a fantastic campaign, bring it to the table, and make it worse than a trip to your dentist for a root canal.
So yeah, I would say I mostly agree with that, and I do agree that a bad enough GM can make any role-playing game terrible.
Yeah,
I believe in the ability of someone who is just unpleasant to be around to be unpleasant, no matter what the game is. But and it sounds like you do agree that there are some role-playing games, such as the one that there's not even a need to name to give it the gravitas of having its name dropped, that is just like mimetically known as the most terrible role-playing game of all time.
Really? I don't even know which one that is.
Come to mind.
The one that is horrible and extremely offensive and just like is often discussed as like gross and the worst RPG.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure that one is terrible no matter what. But
I heard it's very popular with neo-Nazis though, so you got to give it that.
I don't even know which one you're talking about, so
I'm sure
we're not going to go there.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, text me. I'm very curious.
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Okay. But here's my twist on that, which is I think that we often like to put things in boxes of 2, like terrible and great. And I think that terrible GM who made the great role-playing system turn out badly, it may have also just been because that is the wrong role-playing system to play with that GM, because it plays up their weaknesses while completely knocking their strengths out from underneath them. And that can happen on like any side of any divide. Like I have seen GMs who are like the most engaging, interesting for GM, even for things like role play in a rules heavy system like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, and they do tons of role play. They know all the rules, they do the nitty gritty stuff right, and they can make interesting, engaging encounters. But you put them in a more narrative game and they're still good at the narrative, but it just like, even one like Fate that's kind of in the middle, right? Fate is not that narrative where they just can't do Fate because all of their encounters in Fate just sound like they are just completely everyone doing the same thing every turn.
Yeah.
And it's
I would agree. I would agree with that line of thinking. Like, you'll have somebody who is a very good dungeon master and throw them into a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and they're going to feel lost because you don't have that same structure that they're used to playing with in a Powered by the Apocalypse game. And like the moves and playbooks and things like that tend to kind of throw them off.
Yeah. And even if you give them months or a year to learn about it, it may just not play to what make them strong as a game master. Now, that being said, there are just terrible game masters who are bad in every game. I'm not saying that there aren't, and just be like, oh, well, they look bad, but maybe they're good in a different game system. And there are terrible game masters who only play one game system, which they are terrible at. That is definitely true. But I think there are some, I've run into some situations just because with friends I know who I was like, oh yeah, you're really not good at GMing this other game. You're not good at GMing this other game. You're amazing at GMing the games that you usually GM. But like I've seen that happen before. Sense. So it's not just the game. It's not just the GM having like a quality good, bad, but it's also the interaction with the players. I've seen a GM who I've seen do a great job, just do badly, and it looked like it was the GM's fault, but it was mainly just because of the players, because the way the GM usually is like really good at getting players to be drawn in and to let them build agency and get them drawn into the plot and the story and the role play and the battles, but the players were just not doing that and wanted to be led around by the nose, and the GM wasn't good at that. And so it looked like the GM was floundering. It was more because like the players weren't responsive to their style. So it's a synthesis between all the players, including the GM, and the rule set, I think, and the adventure in some cases if it's a adventure written by a different person, and all of those can lead towards the experience being better or worse. That's my opinion.
I don't know. So I was thinking about it, and the best GM I've ever seen, and you can watch them because it's public. If you watch Harmontown or Harmon Quest, and that has what's it? Harmon from Community.
Yeah, Dan Harmon.
Yeah, Dan Harmon, and the people on that show, Spencer Crittenden is the GM, which is really funny because he's really very quiet GM, but he's very good. And all the players are not just professional actors and comedians, but improv. In fact, half of that show and half the time they had guests were the people from Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it's like, okay, you literally have actors and professional improv comedians. They're amazing. It's like they are so freaking good because they're basically doing their act in a character, and it is great. Like it's a podcast. They don't do it anymore. Harmontown was on for a long time.
It had some funny moments in there. My favorite was one of the actors that they had on the show.
Which one?
Was just, I can't remember, but she was just wrong about what her character had done and was just clearly arguing
Audrey.
with him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So the animators,
right?
The animators actually showed it because she was like, "No, I had it in my front pocket," and she clearly said it was in her back pocket. So the animators who had shown her putting it, because they had to animate it happening, showed her putting it in her back pocket, then showed a scene of while she was arguing with him, her picking it from the back pocket and putting it into the front pocket, which also kind of lampshaded that she was just making things up to get an advantage for her character who had been possessed by a demon or something, was now fighting the other PCs.
Yeah, the best,
hilarious.
If you watch when Greg Probst is on, and he's a really good comedian, he plays a unicorn called Tylenol with codeine. That's the name. It is. He is so. It's like you think he's reading from a script because he's so good, and I'm like, damn. And there's an example of like, this is good in every aspect. The players are good. The GM is good. I don't even know what they're playing. Actually, they're playing Pathfinder, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's basically like listening to improv.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was. I remember the episode where the one guy from Silicon Valley who actually played.
He's a big gamer.
He was trying to actually play the game, and the GM actually got a little flustered. He's like, I brought my own dice. I'm going to roll them. Not a lot flustered, but he was like, oh, yeah, I guess he could roll it. He was so used to just rolling it himself and doing it as improv with the other guests. My one disappointment though is they had the voice actress who played Cora from The Legend of Korra on, and they did not have her play kineticist. Ooh. That made me sad.
Oh, because you wrote it.
Well, because it's the elemental one, right?
And you wrote it.
Yeah, but like I was watching Legend of Korra while I was writing the PF1.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
So you're like,
it would have been like that would have been amazing if
like a dream come true. She's playing my own character that I inspired based off her. The circle of life is complete. Sorry, Mark.
Then they didn't do it.
I've got a question to piggyback on that real quick. So, as a game master, would you want your players watching that show all the time? Because I think that would create unrealistic expectations for your game mastering.
No.
I hear from people all the time. Critical Role has ruined their gaming table.
No, definitely not. Well, I'll tell you a few things. Well, first, let's talk. Cheese of Ages, who's a member, gave $5 and said, as a GM, the best systems is where I think of anything and not have to wonder how to do it because the system gave me all the tools. For example, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And you did mention that yesterday, Jeff, is that you like to just go with the flow and worry about the rules later, which I do find.
Depending on what we're playing. And what I said was the sign of a very bad game master is if you're playing and something comes up and there is a rule somewhere in the book about it.
Right.
And they just bring everything to a screeching halt so they can sit there and be like, okay, let me look this up.
Got it.
Don't let something like that derail your time at the table. You don't have that much time in a session.
True.
And then at the end of the session, say, hey, you know what? I didn't know that rule. I'm going to find out what that is and then explain it to everybody the next time we get together. But yeah, as far as just throw the rules out, not necessarily, because then what's the point of actually having a system that you're...
Okay, you're right. I definitely...
There's a big difference between throwing the rules out and between wanting flow. In fact, I would argue that one of the differences that most game masters want flow. They want logical flow. They want it to go fast. The big difference between the ones who want a rules heavy game and a rules light game, despite like each of them sort of straw manning each other, and the rules light straw man and the rules heavy people want to just stop the game for 20 minutes to look things up, is that the rules heavy people don't want to do that. They want to have a game system that is rules heavy, but also like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where all the rules kind of logically work together in a consistent way that you can understand, so that they can have something flow quickly. And when the GM does make their own side ruling, it's based on a fundamental framework that makes sense, it's consistent and fair, and it can just keep going. Whereas maybe that same group would argue with each other for hours in a narrative game. Well, no, I could have gotten past that door. There's no rule that says I can't. Whereas they think both sides are trying to have a smooth game that for them is easy to keep going, to prepare in advance if they do that, to run it improvisationally if they do that, and have it deliver what they're expecting.
So I would, by the way, Cheese of Ages says there's rules in Pathfinder 2nd Edition for making quick rollings.
Yeah, Mark. I know.
Did you write that?
No, I know that. Logan and I wrote that sidecar together.
Here's the advantage, Jeff. When you have one of the creators of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it is fun to make fun of him / ask him questions about rules. So you don't get to do that a lot. So back to your question, the Matt Mercer effect. I think I'm a pretty good GM, so I'm not that worried about it. B, I've been GMing my group forever, and we have like, we're just like, we just have an ebb and flow and friendship, and like, we've been through it all. We're like an old married couple at this point, like
Sure.
we know how we play. And I will amend that, is that we like looking up rules. Like, that actually is something we enjoy doing at the table. One of our members is a lawyer. The other one worked at Blizzard as a game designer. So like, we like this. So when it's like, what's the rule? Oh, goody. We spend the time to look it up and get it right, because that's part of the enjoyment of the game for us. So, we don't mind that at all. But I totally agree that some other games, you don't want it to like come to a screeching halt and then stop. So you really just have to know your group, I think, as a GM, because I have two actual
that's
plays.
a great luxury that you have.
Yeah.
Is that you've got a group that you've gamed with for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Sadly, the vast majority of gamers out there don't have that.
That's true.
In fact, I feel bad for players who are shackled with bad game masters because that's all they got available to them.
Yeah.
Or game masters who don't fit with them. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Who aren't necessarily bad, but their play style is like the opposite.
Or game masters who have a group of players who are just awful.
Yeah. Oh,
awful
that does not last.
There can be game masters with terrible players. There can be players with terrible game masters, and they're both fine, but their play style is different. Like, I know I often will try to come up with these kind of things, but I think it's true. I think it even is true going back to the question, great or terrible role-playing game. There are some that are terrible. There are also just some that are just completely the worst for me. Like, I'll tell you an example of something that I've seen it be done as an amazing game design choice, but that it will always be bad for me. And that is a shared party resource in a game that encourages single players to make their own decisions, which use that shared resource and is not a consensus spend. Anything that does that is an immediate pass for me because of the fact that I am a major hoarder of resources until it matters. And so I feel bad about myself for getting annoyed with people when they spend those resources on trivial things, but I do. And so I don't want to feel bad about myself or get annoyed with people for doing that, because it's like, they're encouraged to act individually. It should be fine that they get to spend the resources. But since that just like, for me, ticks off a psychological thing where I'm like, oh, we're not going to have it later if we need it. And I've definitely lost in a game like that because of people using the party resource too much. Just like, I've realized that it's too psychologically stressful for me to deal with it and the dynamics of it. So those are just like, I'm automatically going to pass. It's okay if there's a shared party resource and everybody kind of has to agree together about it. It can cause some issues where there's like pressure or social contract issues, but like, I'd rather have individual resources than I can hoard my resources if I want to and spend them when I want to spend them.
Go ahead, eat all your rations. I don't care. I got mine.
Yeah, well, I can spend them when I want to spend them and not when Steven decides to. Like, I've never played a game like that with Steven. I'm using him as an example because of the person who does the opposite thing, but not when Steven decides, oh yeah, we're going to spend all of these on this random side role playing thing, even though we're probably all going to die later.
Wow. So, I mean, we actually have a question here. Kevin R. Smith.
Hey, it's Kevin. He hangs out at the show all the time. Hey, Kevin.
He had a question. Do players have a critical role effect where they feel inadequate if they can't voice their characters like professional voice actors?
I think some players do. Yeah, I've heard some players be like, I can't role play because I've seen like Critical Role or other things like that, and I'm nowhere nearly as good as that. So I might as well not try.
I actually don't really. I've kind of started to do voices in the last few years, but I said this on my show, is that the guys I play with forever, they don't do voices, but I can always tell when they're talking in character versus when they're talking, even though they don't change their voice. I just somehow, just the way there's a subtle difference. Like, they do a voice whether they realize it or not. It's just the way they say things, or maybe a little bit more excited or something. So I think
players are kind of like that too.
Yeah, I think players do talk in character voice whether they realize it or not, even if you're using your regular voice. So the problem also doing voices is that it can hurt your voice if you're doing it for too long. So
especially
I have actually never heard any players say, "Oh, I'm inadequate to play." I know there are people who have social anxieties and things like that prevent them from really getting into role-playing games and that, but I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, I watched Critical Role and I don't think I could pull that off." Maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. I've just never heard it.
It's the Matt Mercer effect. Basically, you watch him and you're like, "Oh my God, he's so good. I wish I was that good."
Oh no, you're like, the Matt Mercer effect is you watch him and you say, because you're also lured in by the fact that some of it's pre-scripted, worked out in advance for a good show. But you don't think of that, and you think, "Oh, really? Wow, he really did that on the fly." And you think, "No, he's so good. I could never be so good. I can't GM. I'm not competent to GM. I can't do it.
Right?
Look at this. This is like way more than anything I could possibly do. I shouldn't even try." That's the
I get it.
But I think that the player version of that isn't just saying like I can't play the game at all. It would be like, I might as well not try to role play. I'll come to the table and I'll roll the dice. But I've heard some people, not a lot, not as many as with GMs, say things like that, where it's just like, well, I've seen what a real role player can do. That's real role playing. I can't do that. So there's no reason to try role playing because I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about it because, like, for me, I've given talks at the conventions and about GMing, and I always say it's like, if you GM and just keep doing it, eventually you'll have seen almost everything, or at least it's like even the strangest thing I'll say, "Oh, I've seen that like 3 other times." Like, and that's part of it. It's like you will get enough experience that you'll know how to deal with bad players. You know how to deal with people going off the rails. You'll know how to deal with character death. Like anything in life, like you do it more and more, you will get better at it and you'll learn from it. So you got to start somewhere, you know. You might as well. And more importantly, I think you'll know if you like to be a GM. Like, I can't be a player. I'm bored out of my mind. It's so boring to be a player for me. Like, I need to have 10,000 things going on at once for me to play a game. So I'm a forever GM, and I almost never play a player. And when I do, I'm usually bored. So, and that's just me. I just know that as part of myself. And then I'm sure there's lots of people out there, they just want nothing to do with GMing. They just want to sit back and relax.
Yep. They just want to focus on their character and what's going on with their party. And I'm absolutely fine with that. Yeah. I'm a forever GM too. In fact, I think I have probably gotten to be a player maybe 20 times in my life.
Wow.
And I'm probably shooting high. Yeah, I'm always game master, so I don't mind it. I enjoy it. I'm kind of like the same as Steven, where it's like, you know, I kind of want to have all these little plot threads running through my head, and so while you guys are doing this, the NPCs over here doing this, my little machinations and things like that. But I just never get the opportunity to play.
Really? You don't have like a regular group?
Oh, I'm talking about as a player.
As a player. Oh yeah, I know. I don't have any groups either.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I've never actually, not never. I've actually been a character, maybe 20 times. Every other time, it's always been a GM.
The last time I was a character, we did play a campaign, and actually all the way from level 1 to 20, 4th edition, believe it or not, D&D, and I played a sorcerer, and it was awesome. I mean, actually, I'm like one of the only people, like, I liked 4th edition quite a bit, but we're big into combat, and the combat system was really good. I mean, I think I felt like the role-playing and the other aspects were terrible, but we love tactical combat, and we were like, this is great. We love the tactical. A lot of people do. Yeah, the tactical combat aspect of 4E was excellent. It had a lot of other problems, but that was not one of them. And yeah, that was the last time, and it was fun. And after that, I don't think I've ever really played. I mean, I played one-shots here and there, but that's about it. So, And that was whenever 4E was out. Was that 12, 13 years ago? So that was a while ago. Yeah. What about you, Mark? Do you play? You play everything though.
Basically, when I started out for like maybe a decade and a half, I played like 4 times at all during that time. But I have recently gotten to play a lot more. And I started because in organized play, you can always just kind of play and GM, and I did a lot of that for Pathfinder. And then also in my home group, one of our so like Linda started when she started GMing, then I started being able to play, and then we got a third person in our home group who GMs now, and now I actually haven't GM'd a lot in a while. In several years I've barely GM'd, but I went from at least for our like our main group, I do GM sessions of role-playing games that I'm running like solo for Linda a lot more, but for our home group we just have a third guy who's been running 2 adventures, and they take a really long time to finish, and so I'm thinking of starting another one up again. But I went from being like the forever GM who like literally, even I'm not talking about long campaigns, I mean like 3 or 4 like sessions where I wasn't the GM that were usually like indicated by players as like, this is a guest session from this one person because Mark's always GMing, and they were sometimes of dubious quality, and then they were like, see, it was bad and therefore you need to just keep GMing because this is the best I can do.
So it is funny that you said that there's only 2 areas. There's great and terrible. By the way, if you ever want to see, Jerry Seinfeld does a whole bit that everything in life is either great or terrible, and that's it. It's quite a good bit. He even has this thing where it's like, oh, you get a brand new ice cream cone and you're all excited, and then they put like sprinkles on in the wrong color, and you're like, oh, terrible. And then you lick it, and then it falls on the floor, and you're like, great. So like everything is interchangeable on top of that. Yep. So but you said you wanted to amend it great, terrible, or amazing. Then you said you wanted the third in there yesterday. Amazing. What is amazing? Or what makes a game amazing?
What makes a game amazing but not great?
There you go. That's for you, Jeff.
Yeah, I figured. Let's see.
But what makes a game, but what makes it good for you? Is it like the story? Is it the setting? Is it the mechanics? Because, or I'll go first. What you think? It's like right now, it is strange because there's so many people complaining about D&D 5e, and it's always with mechanics. It's usually mechanics, and it's usually like, they don't seem to have trouble with the stories and the settings, or sometimes stories. Let's rephrase that. They don't always have problems with the setting. And then, okay, story might not be fleshed out enough, or it's I'm talking about the adventures, because that's kind of all like WotC publishes at this point. And then mechanics are definitely all over the place for 5e. But the weird part is that people who've only played 5e, who are new to the gaming scene, love D&D and just don't, they just don't see any problems with it. And then people like us who have been around forever can see all the flaws and all the issues, and there's 1,000 videos published a day about why this build stinks and why this ability is terrible and this spell's overpowered and so forth. And yet they still play it. So I'm like, well, why do you keep playing this game if all you do is complain about it? I don't understand
because the complaints get them views.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, like, even if you're not talking about that, if you're talking about someone who doesn't have a YouTube channel and is just posting on the internet, the secret is that the people who do nothing but complain are really invested in the game, and they're deeply into the game. Even if, like, as I've said before, and it's in one of our videos, I think that even if they've written a corpus over the years of like 300,000 words, such that if they like were paid by an RPG company, they would have been paid like 5 figures of money for those words if they were like quality words, that are all vitriolic hate that just proves also that they produced enough content that it was like, if it was actual RPG words, it would have like, you know, like been their job. That's a lot of vitriolic hate, which means that there's a lot of passion. Like, is it directed negatively? It is, but if they really thought, you know, there's nothing to this they would have just like forgotten about it and not done, like, and gone and done something else. Right?
Well, piss and vinegar sells. So, I mean, that's what you normally will see looking at Twitter when people complain about things. That tends to trend when people are like, wow, I love this. People are like, I don't care.
Even on a forum without an algorithm, though.
Right. But what I would point out is, if you had never had ice cream in your entire life, and then at the age of 25, you had your first vanilla ice cream cone, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is delicious. I can't get enough of this. You'd be like over the moon until you had your first taste of chocolate. And then all of a sudden it'd be like, you know, that vanilla was okay, but this chocolate, wow. And then all of a sudden you've got mint chocolate chip and all these other flavors. That vanilla is not so exciting anymore. So that's how I kind of see people coming to 5e. If they've never played any role-playing games before, they're like, wow, this is really cool. I'm super excited. And then when they branch out and try other games, now suddenly that 5e loses a little bit of its luster. And then once you've been playing different role-playing games for years, you kind of look at 5e and go, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I can see that, because we actually have, we had Anton on our show recently, and he's a big 5e gamer, and he publicly just discovered Pathfinder, and a lot of his videos of him going, oh my God, like they fixed everything. And it's just him discovering, after playing 5e for so long, everything he was complaining about is now mostly fixed in Pathfinder, and now his videos have turned into him comparing the two. And he's been on our show, and he's stunned that it's like, why aren't more people talking about this? It's like, why is 5e winning so well? You know, like, what is it? I mean,
I tell people, well, for one, Critical Role helped.
Oh, Critical Role, Stranger Things, it's part of it. Oh, right. Yeah, there's a million reasons. Yeah,
you don't see a lot of pop culture references to Pathfinder.
No. I mean, yeah, they're in the zeitgeist. They've been around for 50 years, and the combination of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, then Critical Role, and then Stranger Things, that was it. Like, those are the like one punch after another, and it really like got them going. So
I tell people all the time, if you want a lot of player agency and player options, by all means, you go to Pathfinder.
Right.
Because you can create whatever character you really want with Pathfinder. You can't do so with 5e. And then I also tell people, you know what? If you don't want like a ton of mechanics, if you want it just like, well, we're basically going to roll this 20-sided die, and that's going to give me most of the answers that I need, then you want to go over to 5e. So I kind of look at it.
I mean, I was going to say, my friends play both. A lot of my players play both. And, oh my God, how do we actually get a spam bot in here? We never get spam bots in here.
Oh, I brought him along.
That's amazing.
They're with me.
There we go. It's actually very hard to get in here. There we go. So we well, I don't know. I totally forgot what I was saying. Oh well. We were saying,
talking about how you know people who play both.
Oh, they play both. And I was saying, and you know, like I said, what do you guys like? And they say, well, like when they want to feel like superheroes and gods, they play 5e. And when they want to be like challenged and like then they play Pathfinder. And I can see that because if they
want to risk their character being killed, they go play Pathfinder.
Yeah, and it's just like exactly. And here it's like when you're playing 5e, I've played, you know, I used to play a fair amount for a while until we had disadvantage, and all my players didn't want to play because they hated it so much. Because I'm like, well, I didn't seem to have any problem when they had advantage, but boy, did they hate disadvantage to the point that, and this was back when it first came out, and there was like it just turned them off to the whole game was disadvantage, which was. I know, and I was like, wow, what a weird mechanic. And I'm looking for all the pluses, and where's all the plus stuff? Where's all plus this, plus my... I'm like, doesn't exist. You got advantage, you got disadvantage, and that's about it, baby. I was like, wow, that's it? And, you know, someone who grew up with first edition D&D, and, like, we had to, like, look up sub-chapters of sub-charts of sub-tables to find anything, and it's like... This is it. This is all it is.
Like, where are the combat matrices? What's going on?
I know. How will I know if I can turn undead if I don't have a turn undead table?
Exactly. I was like, where's the crunch, man? No. Where's all the crunch? But
how can I bend these bars? I don't know what percentage chance I have to bend these bars.
And it's lifting gates going to be different than bending bars?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, but we've talked about this a lot on the channel, is that simple sells, man. It's like low barrier to entry, simple, and it works. It definitely works. You know, it gets everyone in, and that's a good thing, because then maybe, you know, of all those people, if you bring 100 people in and 5 or 10 of them decide to try out Pathfinder or Call Cthulhu or, you know, Traveler or something new, cool. You know, now they're in the medium that they normally wouldn't get involved with. Because of D&D, it was a gateway, so it's all good in the end.
I was gonna say, how fantastic is our hobby that we can have disagreements between, well, no, I play 5e, no, I play Pathfinder, no, I play Call Cthulhu. How wonderful is that we have all these options available to us, plus a slew of fantastic independent creators out there who are not only supporting 5e and Pathfinder, but all other systems, including their own. I love it. I love this hobby.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we saw people complaining about the trailer for the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and me and my friends, I watched it with them. And, you know, these are all guys in their 50s, and they're like, if I was a kid and I saw this, do you know how much we were, like, starved of content like this? Like, what we had to grow up with? It's like, you kids nowadays, you don't know how lucky you have it. I mean, it's totally true. It's like,
get off my lawn.
No, but it's like, oh, there's the new Lord of the Rings series that's coming out. There's the new HBO Eyes of the Dragon. We got this D&D movie. Marvel is every movie is a Marvel movie and comic book and Star Wars. If we had that when we were kids, oh my God, I don't know what I would have
exploded. We would not have become adults.
I don't even know. Like, we were starved. It was like when Willow came out, I was like, oh, Willow, a fantasy movie. I don't care if it's good or not. It's close enough. Krull. I love Krull. You know, it's like whatever you can get, you latched onto.
We could barely contain ourselves when Nicholas Hammond was playing Spider-Man on CBS.
Oh my God. I used to watch that.
Oh, this is now you watch and you're like, oh,
God. You watched The Incredible Hulk. Yep. Oh, Excalibur. Oh, I remember Excalibur. I saw it in the theater, and there was an intermission. That's how long Excalibur was. Remember those intermissions? Yeah.
I saw it in a theater. We didn't have an intermission where I went.
If you get the laser disc, it still has it. It's like a 3-minute intermission in the middle of the movie.
It's pretty wild.
I know. I remember that as a kid. We went, and then there was like intermission. It had like literally like 3 minutes, so you can like go to the bathroom and get food and come back.
Playing an interlude, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's what I gotta ask you. Where do you get those interludes from your show? They are awesome. I love your interludes. They're amazing.
Are you're talking about intermission time?
Yes, all of them. They're so
all over the place.
Oh man, I love your interludes. I was like, I haven't seen those since I was a kid, and even then they were old. Like.
Oh yeah,
but they're fun.
It's funny. There's some I would love to share, but I'll get flagged for copyright. So it's like I can't share the let's all go to the lobby.
Yeah,
which I actually remastered and synced up, and it was I was like perfect. And then I always upload stuff to YouTube to see if they're gonna flag me. And I was like, damn it, copyright violation. Crap.
Yeah, that stinks. No, but you have good ones. I do like you have the Muppets in there. Before they were Muppets. Those are very cool.
It's Wilkins and Wontkins.
Yep.
It's Wilkins Coffee.
Yeah.
Yes. They actually did commercials for other stuff too.
Yeah.
That I'll be sharing in the future because I'll eventually run out of them.
Oh,
there are only so many of them.
Well, I don't think people will mind. But they're talking about the 80s, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Yeah, the D&D cartoon was fantastic.
I never watched it. In fact, I didn't. I was too old.
Oh man.
I stopped watching Saturday morning cartoons probably when I was 12.
Oh.
So I was too busy playing board games and stuff.
I was too young to watch the Dungeons and Dragons.
I guess I'm right in the middle. That's like
the new starter set actually has some artwork with the characters, and I was like, man, I am not digging this art. These character designs are pretty goofy. And then of course everybody's like, dude, they're from the cartoon. And I'm like, they're like, how can you not know that? And I'm like, because I was too old to watch the cartoon.
Cartoon was pretty good.
Although, here's the weird thing. I guess the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, it looks like is newer than He-Man, and I was not too young to see that.
Well, I didn't watch that either.
He-Man was on in the afternoons, and you could watch that every day. That's why.
It looks like it ran through to almost exactly the same time as the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon ended. Yeah. So
and the D&D cartoon,
I guess I just never saw the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, maybe timing wise.
I mean, I don't know if it holds up. It's probably terrible, but it was good when you were a kid. Again, it's like
sure, right.
You know,
I guess it depends on syndication and reruns because they both were over by the time I was born, but He-Man was still running.
But it is funny, as you said, it's like we've gotten to the point that you can pick and choose the type of role-playing game you want. It's not even to exact specifications. It's not just back then what did we have? We had like D&D, Boot Hill, Top Secret, Gamma World, Traveler,
Tunnels and
Trolls. We had the One Ring, Champions. Trying to think what else.
Villains and Vigilantes.
Oh yeah, Villains and Vigilantes.
But nowadays you could almost be like, I have a favorite die size and genre,
right?
And also whether it's rules heavy versus narrative or things like that. And I want to find an RPG that fits all of those, and you probably can.
Yeah, you can find it definitely, especially at the indie
if you
scene.
Can't, you can just create your own.
Yeah, make your own zine RPG
Paranoia
or a one-page.
Paranoia was awesome.
West End Games, the D6 Star Wars.
Oh yeah, D6 Star Wars.
You had authors who actually used those books as their reference when they were writing Star Wars novels.
Yeah, that was Paranoia I really liked a lot. Paranoia was new. It's like you had 6 clones and one of them dies. You're like, oh well, that was crazy, that game. Believe it or not, my favorite game, which no one agrees with me, at least when I was a kid, was Toon. Toon,
Steve Jackson games.
Toon was insane. That was fun because you had you just had crazy. It was just 2 D6s, and we had a race, and all they had to do was run 100 feet or 100 yards, and it was 10 yards per roll, and each character had a run, and one of them was a run of 2, and one was a run of 3, which means you had to roll a 2 or less to successfully run. The other character had to roll a 3 or less, and if you rolled and failed too many times, you fell down, and then you're out of the game for, I think, it was either 2 or 3 minutes of real time, the equivalent of dying. And I was GMing, and so they would keep rolling, and I'd be like, fail. Okay, you're down. And then the other person can go, okay, you got 3 minutes, go as fast as you can. And they're just rolling like crazy and like screaming and yelling. And it was just so chaotic. And to this day, I remember like that game had timing mechanics, which I've really never seen before. And people would lose their minds because they would try to get rolls in and do things as fast as possible. Sure. And I'm like, this is a cartoon. They did it. They made it feel like a crazy cartoon where anything can happen. Nothing was mattered. You could just invent new things. And everyone's roles were terrible. So you always failed at everything you tried to do, but no one cared. And like, is it a great role-playing game? Probably not. But was it fun? Yeah, it was tons of fun. I loved it as a kid. So
I've got a question for both of you, since I'm pretty sure we're kind of coming up on the end.
Yeah.
What is a role-playing game from the past that you feel deserves far more love than it ever got? And it cannot be Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder in any way.
Yeah, that's easy. Well, I mean, not easy, but wow. That deserves love.
Deserves far more love.
Far more love than it ever got.
Than it ever
So
got.
I mean, it could be
that's
some
really
super
hard for me.
obscure game.
Yeah, that may be easy for you, Steven, but that's kind of hard for me. A lot of the ones that I like, I feel like have had a light shined on them.
I never played GURPS. I mean, GURPS seemed cool, and I got the books, but I never played it because it was.
I think people liked GURPS.
Yeah, no, GURPS people. Put it this way, there's a lot of books out for GURPS at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think a lot of people do buy the books and just don't run.
No one does. I'm trying to think. What did I used to? Was there anything that you see? Everything I think we kind of played. Oh, there was. I mean, well, World of Darkness. That's a good one. Someone actually said that.
Super popular.
I know that was
say,
super. I think of that.
I don't think you can pick that
but
because it
got weird.
So much.
Yeah,
so
a lot of people. A lot of people feel that almost killed role playing. So yeah. So it was pretty popular.
It was. I'd probably say I guess Paranoia. Or
there you go.
I'd probably say Paranoia because Paranoia was really popular. And then just disappeared, and they even came out with a new version, but I don't think nothing happened with it. Not
really. I think they've had 2 more versions come out since West End Games folded.
But I would say, okay, I wouldn't say D&D, but there's a lot of settings in D&D that failed horribly. That's not a game, though. I know it's not a game. I know, but it's like a sub game. But if I would have to say Paranoia.
There definitely are settings in D&D that I feel are underserved.
Oh yeah, definitely. But the thing about Paranoia is that it was so, it was ahead of its time because it was a really weird game, and it was just like, and I think back then everyone was into really heavy role-playing games, and that was just so silly. It almost was like too silly at the time. I see some good ones. Earthdown in here, Rifts. Cyberpunk 2020. Actually, you know what I'm thinking? June. Remember that one? That was really weird. That was can't even describe that one. It was so bizarre. Do you know what I'm talking about? Jorn, it's called.
Yeah.
It came out again.
Sky Pirates of Jorn. Something along the lines like that. I never saw it.
Yeah, it has really good art, and the art is like it was almost like alien type. It was weird. Like I remember, like whoa,
it came in a box set originally, if I remember correctly.
It was scary too. It was almost a scary game because it was like too much for me to handle. I remember. Yeah, I guess those are just popular. I mean, like the Lord of the Rings games, I never really played them. The artwork was nice. I remember those, the ice games.
I got one I'll share.
I was like, which one's yours? Oh, Judge Dredd. I never played Judge Dredd, but I think that was super popular in the UK, by the way.
Fantasy Games Unlimited.
Yeah.
So there's a real blast from the past.
Yeah.
Bushido.
Oh, Bushido. I forgot about that one.
A really solid role-playing game. And talking about kind of segueing back when we were talking about, good game master can take basically any system and make a memorable game out of it. I had an opportunity to play a one-shot Bushido at a convention that was just a blast, and I went and bought it, and it was just so nicely presented, and you had characters who were heroic, but they weren't like, oh my gosh, I can't be killed by anything. And just the research that went into it was so well done. And Fantasy Games Unlimited had some pretty cool role-playing games. Just never really got a lot of love.
I remember the ads in the back of Dragon Magazine. They had really good ads. I remember seeing them all the time, the Bushido ads. And the electronic dice ruler. Do you remember that? It was like the bone-shaped one that had LED lights and stuff. I remember that all the time.
I don't have to actually physically roll dice anymore.
I know. Can you imagine?
The future is here.
Ollie Wright for Bushido wrote €5, and it's extremely atmospheric rule books. That seems like a very intimidating game to run. That game. You know what? You know what? I actually liked a lot, but it wasn't a role-playing game. It was Car Wars.
Yes,
Car Wars was awesome. I played the updated version. It was good. It was good. I didn't think it was terrible at all. But I don't know. It just kind of
the one that just recently came out.
Yeah.
I
haven't played it either. But Car Wars was not a role-playing game, but I think it could be because it was so flavorful.
And then they actually did release some GURPS supplements.
Oh yeah,
to make it more of a role-playing game.
Yeah, because I would spend so much time just building cars, just like building.
Everybody did.
Oh, it was awesome.
Everybody did that.
It was
and
so
then
much
you would
fun.
actually play, and you would play for like 5 hours. And like 28 seconds of real time in the game.
That was the problem with the game. It was like, okay, 10 minutes equals 1 second. It's like, come on. It was so... It mentally... It shouldn't matter, but for some reason it did. And even when we play D&D and Pathfinder, it's like, okay, we've been fighting for 4 hours. What round are we? We're in round 5. It's like, okay, we've been doing this for 30 seconds. Like I try not to think of it like that, but that's exactly, it's like around the 6 seconds and we're up to the 3rd round and we've been doing this for 3 hours, so it doesn't seem as bad. But Car Wars definitely. And Ogre, do you remember Ogre?
Oh yeah, of course. And then the follow-up to that was GED,
right? I never played GED, but I do remember Ogre. I did get the reprint of the massive Ogre, the big one, the big box one. They actually came out with a board game. Did you review this one? It was Fast and Furious, I think, and it's gotten excellent reviews. Like it's gotten like really strong reviews. That it is kind of like a Car Wars type game where you like have cars and they're moving up.
From Funko.
Yeah, I think so. It's gotten like I couldn't believe
it's from Funko.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the reviews. They were very strong.
Don't believe the reviews.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's what I thought. I was like,
there's your answer. Okay. So
maybe you did review it then.
Well, you got to realize I actually try to stay away from bad reviews.
Oh.
Because they're just not fun.
I get it.
But if it's a company, it's like, yeah, we understand we got problems with this, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead. Then I'll share it. Otherwise, I always reach out to a publisher before I do a negative review.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fast and Furious was all right.
Oh, okay. I know. I saw the reviews and I was like, oh, that could be cool.
We've had discussions on the live stream about reviewers and that. So
interesting. I was wondering about that.
Got to be careful.
Be careful. So Ollie has another great super chat. This is one of our big fans. Is that what is each of your favorite old school modules pre AD&D 3? So like first, second edition.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, I have a lot of modules too. And I'm sure you did what I did. I just read them all the time, just reading them and just collecting them and just hard work.
Pre AD&D 3 though. Does that mean that it has to be before AD&D and before 3rd edition?
No, I would say third edition. The question would be.
Because otherwise there's no modules. It's like, what do you like? Nothing. There wasn't really any modules before that.
Men and Monsters. Yes, that was awfully good.
Wow. Your favorite? It's not my favorite. I mean, Ravenloft, obviously, because it was the first time I saw 3D printed maps. And I was like, whoa! Like the maps were like blew me away when I saw Ravenloft. And the artwork, like there was a lot of firsts in that module. That was definitely like the module with the firsts. And that one blew me away. in terms of just layout, design, structure, story. Not my favorite though, but it is memorable. I'll leave it at that. And then I would say, I mean, it's a hackneyed one to say, but I'm gonna unfortunately say it, is that Barrier Peaks. Freaking love that module. And White Plume Mountain, because I love Black Razor. I just those two are my favorites. I just love those. They're so original, and they just have a lot of iconic items in it, and just I can still remember most of the modules to this day. So I think that counts. So that's mine. Oh, and Loth, of course. Spider Queen. Too many. Like, those are my favorites.
How about you, Mark?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think everyone always names those super, super old ones. So maybe I will name some things that are less well known. So like one that's kind of funny, just like the name is funny and has some amusing stuff in it. That's a much later one in the period that we're talking about. How about Die Vecna Die?
Never played that one. Never even read that one. I've heard of it. I've heard of it. I've never read it.
I've seen it. I have not read it.
It's one of those later ones that are like near the end of second edition, when they're like third edition was coming out, and they were definitely fun and funny and very high level. Obviously, Die Vecna Die includes some Greyhawk stuff, but there's also like Ravenloft and Planescape stuff in it.
Wow!
So it has some connections to Ravenloft.
Download that one.
I feel like there's like some vampires or something, and then you wind up dealing with Vecna in Die Vecna Die. It's different than Vecna Lives, of course.
Wow. I've heard it.
Yes,
now I
want to read it.
No, I think it was obviously
look that one up.
The name is like an homage. I'm not even saying it's better than the ones that everyone always names, but nobody ever names the ones from the very, very end of there. But if we're talking about ones that I actually really like, I really like Planescape. So we're talking about Tales from the Infinite Staircase. There's like the Great Modron March type stuff. Some of these I had trouble getting all of them, and so I only had like partial completion of. And then now I don't have any of them because the house where they were burned down. But it was hard for me to collect some of these because I started coming in later on. I mostly only had like core books when I was little, and when I was a little older, I was trying to find some of the more obscure ones at the time, and most of the adventures fell in that sort of in that category.
Oh my god, Die Vecna Die came out in 2000. It's not even that old.
It came out, I told you, it's old, but it is a second edition one.
They said it's like the last.
Came out just before the Apocalypse Stone.
Last second edition.
Yeah, the Apocalypse Stone was the last second edition one, and that was the one where they were just like, this is made to blow up your world. Like the terrorist comes, like everything's an apocalypse because we're going into third edition.
Yeah, it's got like the Lady of Pain, it's got Vecna, it's got the Trust. Oh my god, it's 160 pages. I'm gonna read this thing. I'm downloading this. This is crazy. I love adventures like that.
Apocalypse Stone is also really too, but I like Die Vecna Die better. I was thinking between the two of them for the very, very late stage 2E ones, because no one picks those. When you ask something pre 3E, they're always going to be like, oh yeah, it's Barrier Peaks.
Well, there's that whole time
the Slavers one, or like the Giants one, and like that like those are always the ones that everyone says.
There's a lot.
I think that there was cool stuff that was later on
at the end that I see them pop up every so often on my Facebook. I'm like, I've never even heard of half of these, and those are the ones around the late 1990s where they were just no one was. I don't know what they were, to be honest.
That was when they split up their player base, and like the postmortem. Like we talked about it in the episode with the history of TSR, where they had split up so much that each individual product, almost no one was buying.
I know. Wait, so what's yours, Jeff? You got us on the spot. What's yours?
Well, I have to preface this by saying that by about 1982, I was gone from D&D.
Oh, okay.
And I am not up on well, okay. For the past few years, I've looked back into more of it, but until 5th edition came around, didn't really dive too much into it. But we were of the mindset that we only played advanced Dungeons and Dragons because basic expert, well, that was, poo-poo on that. Those are for the children. I don't know why. Stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But that was how we looked at it. And I got to say, looking back at some of the modules that I did not own, sticking away from, the against the giants and the drow and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say, some of my favorites are like basic and expert. I think the Lost City is pretty much a damn near perfect module.
Really? Yeah, that's a good module, Barry.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it is so well done. And it's actually a first level adventure where there's actually a reason why the characters are together. That makes sense, where it's not like, oh, you're sitting in the inn. So yeah, I think that would probably be my favorite of the older adventures. And there's a lot of sandbox to it that you can utilize. It's got good faction play, which I am a big fan of faction play.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I would say, Lost City.
You're a big adventure guy. What's your favorite all time ever of any adventure for any system that it's just good reading?
Nyarlathotep.
Which one? Oh, that one?
Yeah, Masks of Nyarlathotep, I think, is my because I ran the entire thing. So that's a bonus right there. It is phenomenal. It's one of those adventures that everybody has to play once. Just like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, 4th edition, I think, is wonderful. I think Cubicle 7 has done a fantastic job. And they reissued and redesigned the Enemy Within campaign.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. They have a whole new 3-box set, 3-book sets. Beautiful.
It is excellent.
Really?
So that's another real good one. That's another where it's like, as a player, you really want to get somebody to run that for you once. Although it's going to take a couple of years to get through.
That's what I was. Someone just asked. Ali wrote, "How long will this take?" And you're like, a couple of years.
A long time. That's in Nyarlathotep will take longer, I think, in my opinion, than Enemy Within.
What about you, Mark? What's your? We've actually had this discussion, but because I already know mine, but I'm curious. What's yours again?
Favorite adventure
ever,
published adventure
ever
of all time
in history.
For any
system. Just won a gold Ennies.
I don't even remember when we had this before. I want to make sure I say
we did with Derek. We did with Derek. Do you want me to go? I'll go then. What
the heck did I say?
I know what I said because that's always the same for me. It's actually easy. Age of Worms, which is an adventure path.
Oh, we were talking about favorite adventure paths. I know what my favorite adventure path
I count that because it's one massive adventure, and it just has everything. It has everything, and I like it because I've spoken to Eric Mona because he, designed it many times, and he just thought that this was going to be kind of the last one. So he's like, well, then we're going out with a bang, and he just went nuts, and you could see it. It's like you hang out with Tensor, you go to the moon, you fight the Dracolich, not a Dracolich, the Dracolich. You fight doppelgangers. I had one of my characters get taken over by a doppelganger, and then they were in a battle, and then he died, and everyone's like, oh, Chris died, and I'm like, he turns into a doppelganger. I was like, oh, Chris was a doppelganger. It was so many shocks in that thing. Then they'd go rescue him. It has the Rod of 7 Parts, the Hand of Vecna. You name it. It's like, was it insanely famous? It's in this adventure, and you get to do it. It's even
got the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink is in there.
It's a really, really good adventure. And the first adventure, the first to fourth, is my favorite low-level adventure ever written, ever, for anything. It's incredibly well done, and it's done by Eric Mona, actually. And he does a thing that I really like, which is so hard to do, is that, I mean, there's spoilers if you haven't played it because it's 20 years old, is that you go into a dungeon, and like the dungeon is collapsed, and you go into it at first level, and then you go and leave, but then like at 7th level or something, you come back and you clear out the parts that collapsed, and then you keep going. And I was like, okay, that was genius. And then you see what else is there, and I'm like, I love callbacks like that where they set up things for later, because that really connects you to the world in ways that just, you know, as opposed to always being on rails and going from one place to another. It's like, it really does a good job. What's yours, Mark? Do you remember?
So if we're only talking about adventure paths,
well, I'm talking about
adventures.
I know what mine is. Well, I say that's an adventure path because it's one adventure, so I say that counts.
But if we were limiting it to adventure paths, then my favorite Pathfinder first edition adventure path so far, or like in total, was War for the Crown. My group likes political thrillers, and for second edition is Strength of Thousands so far.
Oh,
so
that is actually Strength of Thousands is a very, very good adventure path. I have not personally reviewed it, but one of my reviewers who is just aces, she loved it. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good."
It's really good. And I'm not biased due to being the design lead who helped with some of the rules on it, because that doesn't.
Mark's like, it's my favorite that I worked on. Okay.
I'm not biased by that. I only helped on the rules. Like that doesn't mean I wrote it or did the story or anything, right?
See, my favorite adventure path that I get residuals on would be teasing.
Well, my
I don't
favorite
get any residuals on it, but you can get it now on Humble Bundle if you're watching this live. Obviously, also go to eldemon.com and check out our Kickstarter, which is about to end. But on Humble Bundle, Paizo has up a bundle that has Strength of Thousand,
it does,
Expanse, like everything, and it's very low.
That news piece is set up for tomorrow's show. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I'll be talking about that.
In fact, by the way, here is the authors for someone wrote, this is The Age of Worms. Check this out. Eric Mona, Mike Merles, Sean K. Reynolds, Jason Bowman, Richard Pett, like my favorite author of all time, Wolfgang Barr,
there you go.
Richard Pett again, Greg A. Vaughn, James Jacobs, nobodies.
Who are these people?
It's unbelievable. It's like a who's who of the best writers in gaming. It's incredible. And Richard Pett is probably my favorite author of all time. He writes some messed up stuff. Like he is a weird dude. His stuff is always memorable. That is an excellent. Strength of Thousands is. I got to read the whole thing. I didn't read the whole thing, but I'm doing Agents of Edgewatch. I love Agents of Edgewatch. I think it's fantastic. It's probably that one and Iron Gods. I actually loved Iron Gods. We played Iron Gods all the way through, and Iron Gods was superb. But Agents of Edgewatch might tie it or beat it, because it is. It's like every trope of every cop fan type of movie is in this adventure path. Like they have to do a casino break-in, they deal with the murder hotel. It's like it's just great because they're like getting to live out fantasies that you see in movies, and it's a lot of fun. I personally think it's an excellent adventure path. That's me. So I think we probably came to the end. We go forever, but I think we should end, because otherwise Jeff has another show to do, and so does Mark, because everyone's busy.
Show tonight.
Yeah.
So do I.
Where are you going to be tonight, Jeff? What's on the agenda?
What is on the agenda? Of course, we had news as always, and then this week, I'm taking a look at the Southland setting from Cobalt Press.
Yeah,
so we're doing the player's guide tonight.
Yeah, I actually do like this.
that Wolfgang Bauer gentleman is involved in this too.
Yes.
So.
I know, that's the funny thing. It's like you read that who's who, and it's like, damn, man, it's like all these people have gone.
He's a fun interview too.
Yeah.
Wolfgang's a lot of fun to talk to at the conventions and that. So yeah, that's what's on the agenda tonight.
And
awesome. When is yours tonight?
I air live at 7 p.m. Central.
Okay. So
8 p.m.
and
Eastern.
I air live at 7 p.m. Pacific.
Oh my God.
So that's 2 hours
After, yeah.
2 hours later, because it's 10 Eastern.
Well, I'm Eastern, so it's all 8 and 10 for me.
Yes, it's 8 and 10 for you.
What are you doing
you can
tonight?
watch both unless the gaming gang is more than 2 hours.
No, I try not to. Well, and tonight we're looking at an 80-page book. So it's not like we're going to look at every page. No, I'll be done. People have plenty of time to swing on over and watch Mark's show.
Awesome.
What are you doing tonight, Mark?
So tonight our episode is a pretty interesting one. We're covering let me make sure that I don't get it switched with the one that coming after. Design Diary Anatomy of a Hazard. So we're looking at like what are the elements that make up a hazard? How do you put those together to build an interesting hazard encounter that, one that's not just, oh, there was a pit. I guess we fell in. I guess we took 10 damage. I guess we healed it. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, hazards are tough because that usually it's like hazards seem cool and they're like it went off. All right.
No, hazards are actually legit difficult from a narrative perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And even just from a mechanical perspective of getting it right. Even like some of the most experienced people in hazards I've seen like make mistakes that there's one editor at Paizo who's really good at catching mistakes in hazard templates and found them from everybody. And I'm like, yep, yeah, that sure is a mistake that this person made in hazards. They'll make them all the time because hazards want to tell a story if they were used well. And while you're doing that, it can be difficult to get that right, get all of the sort of mechanics for that story in right, rather than it being vague. And you kind of want to make sure that you've set it up in advance in a way that's not too vague, because
you're giving away your whole show.
Also they can feel like a gotcha.
You're giving away your whole show.
Yeah, it's too bad Mark doesn't get into that inside baseball talk. I don't.
He does, sort of.
I'm kidding. Sarcasm.
Okay. In fact, my favorite hazard ever was, if you talk about bad GMs, is that a friend of this is a long time ago. This guy was walking up a ladder, and then he died. And they're like, well, how did he die? It's like, you're dead. Like, what happened?
That's why you need more to make sure the hazard is fair.
Right. You have to tell it right. There's a whole thing about telegraphing and giving them information, because otherwise you could literally just have, the hazard went off, he killed you, you're dead, game over, and no one knows why. So hazards are extremely hard to do well. And then for us, we are doing the Kickstarter. It ends this Friday. Kickstarter at rollforcomment.com, and we got lots of stuff. You can play monsters, you can befriend Eldamon, they're on the screen right now. You can new Battle Zoo Bestiary, Strange and Unusual, our second one, which will be really weird because I'm getting the artwork in, and I like the one that we just got, the Goldfish in a Bowl, where there's a goblin that carries around a goldfish in a bowl, and that's it. And you're like, what the hell? And the goldfish is actually like an apparition that eats people. So it's sort of like you just walk around and you're like, well, let's see the little fish, and then it bites your head off. So there's some weird monsters in there. And of course we gotta have you have this looking on your show. We had the Battle Zoo Dragon Ancestries book. It just got to the warehouse and it's going out to all the backers. It actually leaving today. So those of you who are waiting patiently for the book, this one's for Pathfinder. The 5e book is still on the boat, but we'll get that in here.
Steven is addressing each individual box as we speak.
I am not. That is where
that's why your hands aren't in the shot.
That's where the warehouse. That's the warehouse. I had my friend. He did that. He had 8,000. No. I think it was like 12,000 books, and he did it himself worldwide.
Steven, the real reason his hands aren't in the shot is because he's in a naughty and he has like 6 arms and 2 legs for a total of 8 appendages.
That was weird.
And he uses all 6 of them. That's how he is always doing so many different things.
Yeah, it's probably not incorrect in some ways, but yeah, no, my friend did that, and I was like, dude, I'm like, I don't know where he stored all those books.
Yeah,
like, that's insane. I was like, all right, now we got professionals taking care of this stuff. I can't do that. I actually almost thought of it for like 5 seconds. I was like, man, what if I could just, no, I'm not doing that. And then I would lose my mind.
I have a life I enjoy, and I don't want that being my new life.
Well, how hard can it be to send out and then even me just sending out books to reviewers is like, oh, It's too much work. It's too much work to send out one book.
Right.
Let alone 10,000. I'm not dealing with this. But I'm very glad you're on, Jeff. I hope you can come on whenever you want. We can talk about anything. Right. Anything.
I don't know. I should start playing these games we were just talking about. I don't know.
Well, we can
tease it again.
We can get together a game of Call of Cthulhu. I would love to play Call of Cthulhu, especially now. You're like, I mean, I need another day in the week, but other than that, right. I would love to.
See, and the funny thing is, I keep trying to run something that's not Call of Cthulhu because not that I don't love it. I mean, I adore it, but my group, that's what I've run. So I'm trying to run something different. I tried running a little bit of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Wow.
To launch that Enemy Within campaign. It's just so damn tough these days to get people together.
Yeah, well,
it's like suddenly somebody gets COVID and you're like, oh.
Well, God, I haven't played
get together for months.
I haven't played in person in 10 years. We've we only do it virtual. Because we all lived in New York City.
Sure. And
then we slowly had kids and moved out, and then we would gather in New York City. Yeah. But then it was just too hard, and then I looked into VTTs and I'm like, I'll set it up. And that was it. And then I've done it ever since. And to the point that like when we show up, because I have a lot automated, so when we show up in person, I'm like, this is weird. What's these dice things? Like, it's actually kind of odd playing in person. I've been doing it. Speaking of VTTs, we have a show tomorrow, and we have Nath on from Foundry, who is always interesting.
That is a very cool virtual tabletop.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. I think if Foundry gets enough, I don't know, a little more buzz going, I think it'll do very, very well.
It's doing really well, trust me. Like I see the sales, at least on our side, and it is stunning how much people play Foundry, at least in Pathfinder.
There you go. See,
it is gargantuan.
Nath uses Foundry for things that sound like I think Jeff would like them based on Jeff's games of choice. Like Nath was doing things where like he would have some of the sounds and even the voices of things that were talking play for only one player, and he didn't tell anybody that that's what he was doing, and then they would later refer to a thing that they thought they'd heard, and everybody would be like, no, we never heard that. He's like, yeah, no, that's what he said. That's what
dude, you're high.
Yeah,
what are you talking about, man?
To like increase paranoia and suspicion about like what was going on.
So, well, think about it. If you're running Call of Cthulhu, they could have like whispers and like people going insane in their voice and their headset. You're like, what's going on? And you're like, who's talking to me? Like, we have no idea what you're talking about, man. It's. You should try VTTs.
My problem with that is I just don't have time.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that.
I mean, it's not like I've got a huge network of people who work with me. I mean, I've got some contributors who do like PDF reviews and that, but everything else is pretty much. So when it's like, man, I'd love to kind of get down into the bones of a VTT. And then it's like, oh, but I have these articles I need to get out, or I need to edit this video.
I know.
It's like, damn.
Yeah, the one thing about Foundry is that you can get a lot of the adventures, even if it's a small one, pre-written and pre-set up, so that you just literally plug and play.
Yeah, I know Cubicle 7 has been a big supporter for Foundry.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of their Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay stuff is on there.
Yeah, all of our stuff's on there, of course.
Yeah, there you go.
And you just literally plug and play. It's like you just download it and drop in and done, and it's all automated. So it's.
And the thing is, I've got it. I have it. I have the full license and everything that was given to me. Just, I wish there were 38 hours in the day.
Yeah. Well, how many games do you play a week, or try to?
Well, I got to try to get like board games in.
Okay.
So the board games, usually that's on a Saturday, sometimes Friday is going to be that. I don't get to game as much as I would like to, especially the past few months, because we have had, knock on wood, I have not come down with it, but within the group, we have had COVID make an appearance.
Got it.
For pretty much almost everybody.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, in fact, somebody got it twice.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, oh, yeah. Well, Joe Biden plays with us, so I guess I'm no.
I actually, yeah, my sister-in-law, she got it twice. It's crazy, but yeah, I play twice a week sometimes, but I have some people in my group that play every single day, every day.
That must be pretty cool.
I mean, it's amazing. I think it sounds exhausting, to be honest, but it's all different too. Like,
I was gonna say, if they're playing different stuff.
Oh yeah, D&D, Pathfinder, like just they're playing lots of different games, so it's never the same thing twice. But they just
Does Biden play Call of Cthulhu with you, or what's his?
Yeah, he is actually. But
I thought he was going to be loyal to Pathfinder after he met someone from Paizo.
That's right. Paizo was at the White House.
He met Alex Spidel.
That's right.
But he's actually a Call of Cthulhu fan. I didn't know.
He is. And the weird thing is, his character has gone insane, but I still let him play him.
Oh my god.
Where usually I would be doing that. Now, I voted for Biden, so I'm not knocking him. I'm just joking.
Oh, I know. It's funny. So. No, this is great. We can go forever, but we got to end eventually. So
yes, we do. We need to wrap up.
We got to wrap up. You got stuff to do. You got to fix all your settings that I messed up, and now you're like, damn it, Steve.
Don't worry, everybody. My voice will be in sync for the show tonight. So we got that going.
You got that. We'll figure it out one day. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I would love to be on again and just chew the fat with you gents.
Yeah, you could see it.
I really appreciate you inviting me on. Thank you very much.
Oh no, I want as many people to watch your show as possible. It's my favorite review show by far because it's just it's gentle. It's very relaxing. It really is nice.
I don't know how gentle it is because every once in a while I'll drop an F-bomb.
You do.
But that's like that.
Yeah, but that's
very gently.
You know what? You did yesterday, and I was like, yeah, it's sort of that's the little spice in the vinegar. That's the little like zig and zag. It's like you can't have it all. If you're always gentle, then you fall asleep. But you throw in that little F-bomb, you throw in the little controversial item, it wakes you up. I like it.
Well, but that's me. And that's, I do not put on an act on the show. It's like, I'm not like sitting there talking like this. And, but the way my approach is if the folks watching live, if we were hanging out, having an adult beverage, talking about games, that's pretty much what would be going on.
There you go.
Just hanging out with your friends. That's how I look at it. So, that's my approach.
That's why I like the show. Again, it's very relaxing. At least for me, I like to sit back and.
I'm sure it's relaxing for other people when they have insomnia as well. So some folks turn it on for that.
I don't know.
Nothing wrong with that, man. You got to fall asleep to something.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Come tomorrow to watch us with Nath.
And we'll see you Kickstarter, rollforcombat.com. Don't forget.
Or Eldamon.com.
Either one.